Hello Internet, this is video number 2, I hope, if I haven't deleted video number 1, in a series about molecular cell biology and cell membranes in particular, given in human speech. And the question I left off with last time was, why is science so hard? Why is science so difficult if it's something that has to do with all of us? You have a body. It belongs to you. Why is it so hard to understand what's going on inside it? And I think the problem is not that you're dumb. You're not dumb. The problem is the vocab. The vocabulary of science puts up a wall between you and scientists. So I thought I'd make some videos talking about science in human talk, in English, actually. See, this stutter should be covered over by a jump cut, but it's not going to be. So one thing I noticed when I first started studying science in college was the vocabulary, and we talked about that a little bit already. When I was doing research for my first scientific paper, my first research paper in college, I was trying to read this article, and I kept coming across the phrase murine trials. And I didn't get very far in the article because I had no idea what this phrase meant. What's a murine trial? Well, the whole article was about a murine trial, so it took forever because this was a while ago, before Wikipedia existed. Not to date myself, but that's the truth. So it took a while to find out what was going on. It probably took me a while to ask the question and to go find the answer. And that's a shame, because it just means tests on mice. A scientific experiment was done on mice, and then they wrote a paper about it, but in the paper they didn't say mice. The word mouse was not in this 15-page paper a single time. The word murine was, and there are reasons for that, but there are also reasons to be against that. So I've got a couple other definitions that I want to go through that are kind of like that I want to retranslate some basic ideas that we're going to be using in this video series. So one is hydrophobic, and I'm getting my definitions from Wikipedia now because I've grown and discovered the internet, and it's a wonderful thing. So hydrophobic is a word, and the official internet definition is: the hydrophobic effect is the observed tendency of nonpolar substances to aggregate in aqueous solution, and it excludes water molecules. What hydrophobic actually means is that it doesn't dissolve in water. Drop my official PowerPoint slide here. We're very high-tech here in my bedroom. Hydrophobic means something that clumps up in water instead of dissolving. Fats are hydrophobic. If you try to mix a chunk of coconut oil in water, it'll bubble up and not dissolve like sugar would dissolve in water. So that's the difference. The hydrophobic effect is the observed tendency of nonpolar substances to aggregate in aqueous solution and excludes water molecules. Or you could just say it clumps up in water instead of dissolving. We'll do a couple more just to make a point, and also because these concepts really are going to be part of what I'm talking about. So I'm not just being silly here. Hydrophilic instead of hydrophobic is the opposite. Wikipedia says it's a molecule whose interactions with water and other polar substances are more thermodynamically favorable than their interactions with hydrophobic solvents. In other words, hydrophilic means something that dissolves in water. And neither of those definitions are bad. I don't want to give the impression that I'm down on scientists or on the way they speak. Like I said, a vocabulary, a dialect is very important for exchanging information with people who are in your club. But to expand your club to the rest of the environment, the rest of the group, you've got to translate. And so I'm a translator, or I'd like to be. Amphipathic is another word that's similar in meaning to what these are. Amphipathic is a chemical compound possessing both hydrophilic and lipophilic properties. In other words, an amphipathic molecule, an amphipathic thing, has part that dissolves in water and a part that doesn't. Yep. It's a little piece of something. Part of it will love being in the water and be like, yay! And the other part of it will see the water and get in the water and be like, no! So that's amphipathic. And there are a lot of things that we'll be talking about that are amphipathic, but we'll try and define them not using that word, I guess, or just remembering what the word really means. Okay, the last word for today is membrane. A selective barrier that allows some constituents to pass through but blocks others. That's true. Think of the soapy skin on a bubble, or better, the balloon part of a filled water balloon. That's a membrane. Things get through. The balloon actually will leak over time. Like if you have a balloon full of with air, eventually it, if it's helium in it, the helium leaks out and it falls to the ground. So things pass through the bubble, but it exists. And that's a membrane. So next time, I want to start talking about things that create membranes, things that membranes are made out of, because they're not just lines on paper. And they're not just thin skins. They're amazingly complicated. And the first thing we're going to talk about is phospholipids, which make up the majority of the membrane's skin. They make up the membrane itself. It's basic. The bricks and mortar of a membrane are phospholipids. The end.